Well, hello, my fellow Americans and fellow Christians, and thank you for joining me for one more day of the Word of the Lord here in the United States of America. As you all probably know, there's a Christian advocacy group that is wanting to take an anti-abortion ad and put it in the Super Bowl Sunday commercials. This, in my view, is absolutely incorrect in the ways of the good Lord. And there are great dangers in doing this. Our Lord has not called the Christians to become political. Our Lord has called men and women that are called Christian to follow the paths that He has called them to walk in. God has not said to make a nation Christian. What the Lord has said is for you to live as Christian in a nation. Let me warn the American people and all Christians today of the impending dangers of politicizing Christianity. Not only is politicizing Christianity against the will of God, as our Lord said, render to Caesar that which is Caesar and render God that which is God's, it is also a buffeting against the separation of church and state. It is the taking of Christian faith and putting it in the federal arena, substantiating the spirit of Antichrist. And this spirit of Antichrist, which most Christians do not recognize, is forcefully upon the American people when such commercials or ads shall be aired. For the spirit of Antichrist is first the forcing of policy and religious ideals upon the populace. That is the spirit of Antichrist that shall come in the future. And let me remind the people in America that this is also reminiscent of the days of independence when the colonial states had to fight, I believe it was against King George, his forceful rule over them, causing John Adams and others to come up with the ideal and with the Constitution and with the Declaration of Independence. These things were brought forward so that men would be of an independent mind and heart and have the free moral choice to choose which way in which they would live. And that the United States was a place of freedom. A freedom from politicizing, a freedom from forcefully putting upon the American people religious values. We all know that is the reason why many of them fled from Europe here to the United States, because of religious persecution. This is shades of it. And the second form of the Antichrist rule is by these very things in which I spoke to you. When Antichrist comes, he shall try to forcefully rule the people of the world by having them worship what he and respect what he says shall be law. And let me say that this ad is an intended willingness to force upon the American people a religious point of view, deliberately and forcefully upon the American people. It also imposes its will upon the American people, secretly declaring war on America's policies, both state and federal, and deliberately and openly declaring war on all Americans' right to live their lives with their own free moral choice as they choose. These are the things that shall happen if we allow these men to air this ad on Super Bowl Sunday. It is a grand mistake. The good Lord is not a respecter of persons. The good Lord says all men have the free choice to live as they will. That's the whole idea behind the United States. And if we do not like the idea of abortion here in the United States, then what we have is called a government. And that we are to go into the political arena and try and change those very things if we don't like abortion. Through political means. But not by forcefully putting it upon the American people that this is the correct way to live. Many people have said that this ad is just an open ad about a gentleman and his mother and how it was important for her to have the child despite all things. This is nothing new. May I remind the American people, and especially the Christians in this land, that Mary was with child as per the voice of the angel Gabriel. And Joseph and Mary had to flee into Egypt because there was a decree out to kill the firstborn, because there was a prophecy about one coming who was to rule all nations. And they had to flee into Egypt, and they could not find a place to stay. And that child was born in a manger, basically in a barn, among the animals. But the important part of that story is that Christ was born among men. And the fact of the matter is this: when he came among men, it was of his free choice. It wasn't forced upon anybody. And when he preached the gospel, he said to the disciples, and who were soon to become apostles, "Go ye into all the world and tell them the good news. Preach the gospel." He didn't say force feed it upon them. He said just tell them. Because his dependent was upon the Spirit of the living God, moving upon the souls, minds, and hearts of men to make the right choice themselves. Whether or not God exists, whether or not God can bless them, whether or not God can touch them greatly. That's the whole story, isn't it? The free moral choice. Christ left the portals of glory to come among men, and it was his free choice to die on the cross for the salvation of all men. Christians need to remember, it is not your duty to politicize Christianity. God has not called Christians to make Christian organizations, to make moral authority organizations, to make the moral majority organizations. God has not called men to do such things. God has called men to live the Christian life according to the dictates of the Spirit that he gives them among a nation, within it, but not force it upon it. Because the Lord's Spirit quite clearly makes it known that the psychology of the move of the Spirit upon men, when it gathers force and it is free to move, the intuitive ideals of Christian faith and ideal of living, the ethics and morals, spread throughout a nation like a fire and guide and directs the nation without forcing itself upon it. That is true Christianity. That is the idea that the Lord has tried to bring across to the people of the United States of America and the world. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.